Welcome back to the Mom Files. I'm Aleea.
And I'm Hav.
So, the holidays are supposed to be magical and joyful, but real talk for many moms, and honestly, a lot of people, holidays bring stress. That could be mental load, physical load, workload, whatever it is. And I know we've talked about this before, but it could be even money, grief, illness, family issues. I mean, there's a lot of things that come with this time of year. And so the list goes on. And so let's dive into why you might be feeling the holiday burnout, because it really could be more than just the holiday stress. And so let's dive into that and tips on how to help kind of get you through this season. And so to kind of start us off, I figured we'd talk about, why the holidays aren't always joyful. I know for a lot of people, something that can happen is it can be a trigger for stress, grief, or sadness. Like I know some people, the holidays could be a time like an anniversary date, and that could be like a death date or just maybe an anniversary you don't celebrate anymore. Maybe it's, someone left during that time of year, maybe who knows what it could be. There could be a lot of different things that could trigger things. And so sometimes, even though it's can be a happy time, sometimes, yeah, things like that can be really hard. I don't know. I'm sure you've experienced that and some other things. What do you think, Hoff?
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. I think for me, especially talking about the grief situation, I've had a lot of experience with that in my lifetime. And the holidays are definitely a time when things just get like brought back up, whether it was something that happened during the holidays or if it's your I think the first holidays are always especially hard without a loved one or, different situation and you can be grieving lifestyle or whatever. But I think that every holiday just kind of hits a little bit different because you start thinking about the things that you're grateful for. And I know for me and a lot of people, and you also start thinking about the people that won't be there with you, the animals that won't be there with you, and stuff like that. So I definitely think that is a really good point and something to think about when you're approaching the holidays along with everything else, because I think sometimes we try to overlook grief, but
Agreed.
there can be really great ways to try to adjust the holidays so that you can enjoy them. I know for my family, a lot of times, and we can talk about in the tips and stuff, but a lot of times, like, we would include something specific that the loved one who's no longer with us really enjoyed so that we could kind of have a piece of them with us. But yeah, I would definitely think that's a really big one for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I really like that you said to adjust and to incorporate, and I think it's a good time to just kind of like also mention it's kind of like what we talked about. I don't know if it was a couple episodes ago about that's also, a great time to save those family heirlooms like the Christmas decorations and stuff because that is also a good time. Like it can be hard. It's one of those bittersweet moments. It's hard to remember memories, but sometimes it's also nice to be able to share them and continue talking about them and things like that. Like you said, it's not just grief. Sometimes too, I think about you might be going through a transitional period. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe you're newly divorced. Maybe something like that. And so I'm also thinking about like, maybe you're a single mom or yeah, I mean, there just could be a lot of things that can come with it. So it can be really hard on top of everything. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons why it potentially couldn't be joyful because we forget just because it's the holidays, real life is still happening.
The world doesn't stop because
Right.
Thanksgiving and Hanukkah and Christmas and all the other really fun holidays, and I think especially one that is on top of my mind with the economy has been rough for a while, right? But, like, especially what we're seeing lately with what families are dealing with, especially low-income families or even families that weren't low income before, having to readjust their lifestyle to be a little bit more meager, where like, some families might be used to doing really, really big holidays, and now they maybe don't get to fly to see cousins, or they downgraded their house, so they have to get a smart Christmas tree. Like, it might sound really, like, little and unimportant, quote unquote, for like the grand scheme of things. But these are things like this is supposed to be the time that we can all forget all of the crappy things going on in life, right? But like when it's so blatantly in your face, it can definitely be stressful.
Yeah, I agree. And I will say, especially if you are listening to this podcast, you probably do have kids. I have found that Dash has made this season easier, even with hard stuff, because it's like you can then see it through their eyes. They're a lot more joyful and excited. So I'm like, if you are struggling with it, just remember like take a little bird's eye view of, what your world looks like, and maybe you can take some gratitude and realize that there are some really good moments because, yeah, it can be really hard. I agree.
Yeah, and I think we've touched on a bit of holiday stuff in
Mhm.
a couple of our past episodes and talked about how, like you said, Aaliyah, like kids, they're really, as much as we want them to have like these really big holidays and really big memories, they're gonna remember like the good times and the joy, no matter how big or small it is. And if it's something that you're comfortable with, one thing that I really love doing with Azzy, especially for with the loved ones that I've lost, we have ornaments, like, my brother ha we have, like, a picture from my brother that he made an ornament when he was in elementary
Cute.
school, and so she gets to see that, and every time until she's older and will, like, actually remember, but she gets to she asks me who he is, so I get to tell her and just talk about him a little bit. Same thing with our dog Tycho that passed away.
He's the
She
bestest.
gets to see his little nose print because we have I made a little thing from that, and it can be really hard to discuss death or, if they're not ready for her, it's more so we just don't get to see them right now, but she gets to, learn about my family. She gets to look at my mom and my brother, and, it's not like we're pulling out pictures of them randomly all the time, so to have that kind of Christmas, almost tradition and be like, "Oh, this is your uncle, and this is your grandma, and this was your puppy," and, things like that are, healing for me, and it's really, really cute to see her get excited about, the stories that I have when I was younger. I say, "When I was your age, he would do this with me, or mom would do this with me," and then she'll be like, "Can we do it?" So then I get to go do it with her.
Yeah,
It's
I
fun.
love that. I think that's so true, and I think that does, and obviously we can skip around a little bit, but I think that does take us into, just some tips for coping with stuff like that during this time of year because it is really hard, and so I love the ornament idea. I definitely think we will do that too, just because we've had a lot of death with Ty's mom and other family members and stuff, and so, I agree with you. It's fun being able to talk about it, and it is hard, but sometimes I think what's harder is it harder, you know, talking about them or thinking that their memories are fading. Like, I like the idea of thinking, like, that we're still keeping them alive and that they'll continue and, like, Dash will teach his kids and, like, talk about, all of his ancestors and family at some point. So, I think
Yeah.
it is something it's a good time to allow yourself, no judgment, to feel the feelings. Like, it can be hard,
Yeah.
but we're also teaching our kids emotions and emotional intelligence and important those I think those are also important things. So, the other thing I would also suggest is if you are dealing with stuff like this, and it might not even be grief loss, like we said, it could be divorce or financial and stuff. Don't forget to reach out to your supportive friends and community, family members, whatever it may be. Like, it can be hard, but doing it alone's harder. So, just remember that because this time of year can feel really lonely,
Yeah.
especially when you do see all the joy and like happy family stuff, especially commercials and everything. It can feel really, that weight can really come down. So yeah, don't forget that.
100%. 100%. And you never know, those children heal you a lot. The amount
They
of times
do.
that Aziz yelled out, "Oh my gosh, it looks like Tycho," and then my little heart just heals because she even knows who Tycho was. He was our
Right.
puppy. If you know anything about Golden Goose, he was featured on our website a few times, but
He was the
yeah,
bestest boy.
the bestest little boy.
What? So well trained.
He was
Makes
really.
Vienna look bad.
It's okay.
Uh,
He makes me look bad too because my dogs now are not nearly as trained. But we do what we can with what we have, right? We're
exactly, yep.
moms now.
Yep, we're in the season of life.
So I know, and we were talking about grief and the hardships and tips on that. But I think something that we've also talked about is red flags in toxic families. And
Mhm,
I think that honestly, at least for me, not really anymore, but I've experienced it before, and that can be one of the most stressful parts of the holiday season. And I see it with a lot of my close friends.
mhm,
You have Thanksgiving and you have Christmas and you have Christmas Eve and New Year's and whatever, whether you guys are doing big family stuff, whatever the case is, having a relationship that stresses you out or gives you anxiety and then coming into the holiday, adding that on to the already stress of being a parent with a child and work and all the
mhm.
things that could be going into it. And now your body and you are just stressed out thinking about how you're going to handle this situation. Are you going to go to this holiday? If you don't go to this holiday, how does that make you look? If you go to this holiday and you have an argument with this person, Are you gonna be the bad guy? Are they gonna be the bad guy? Like, all these things that go into it, which we highly suggest if you haven't listened to that episode, give it a listen, and maybe it might help you kind of assess what you need to do before the holidays or whatnot, but I know that can be a huge stressor for so many people
Yes,
coming in.
I'm actually really, really glad you brought that up because I agree. Other than the other things, that's definitely the top stressor. It is for me personally. Like I have a lot of family issues on with certain things, and that is definitely something I've grappled with through the years is deciding like, do we go, do we not go, and then we're the bad guys, that type of thing. I will say from my personal experience, I have taken the route of not attending events just to preserve our joy and peace, just because I know that my boundaries will be stepped on and will be crossed and won't be respected. And so, after dealing with that enough times, it was just one of those things where I felt the need to say no to those family obligations just because they were draining and it became more stressful. So, if that is you, definitely don't feel like Hav said, definitely listen to that episode. But if you do feel like that's something that you're dealing with, it can feel hard, but definitely think about what's best for your peace and your kids. Because I'm like, you really don't want the memories down the road of
Yeah.
the fighting. Or, it's like what Hav said, you also don't want it to end up being a blah and then it gets worse because like maybe it's your fault or not your fault. But it can just be a really high time of year for emotions. So
Yes,
definitely
very
think about that.
tense. I
Yeah.
feel like this tends to be the time too when those particular family members
Mhm.
think that you owe them your time because it's the holidays and we're supposed to forget all the crappy things that you did to me and whatnot. And even if I will say, because for me, I wouldn't say that I have, a lot of like toxic family drama and stuff, but I know that I really enjoy my small family time. So I like to we do Christmas and we do Thanksgiving and everything with the big family, but, like, Christmas Eve is our time to have, like, one-on-one, just our family. So there are, like it might not like I said, it might not be a toxic family member, it might just be that you get overstimulated and you really want those small memories too, but I think this could work for both of those situations where you set out a time to have the holiday the way that you want it and create the experience with your little ones the way that you want them to remember it. So that if you do feel obligated to go to those family events, you kind of have like, if those are a bad memory, it doesn't ruin the whole holiday season for you. And 5 years down the line, your kid has really good memories on top of it. We're all human. There's not going to be perfect memories for
No, no.
every
But,
um
like, a little
but yeah,
fight versus, like, yeah. There's,
yeah,
like,
but like, hey, Christmas
yeah.
Eve, we did this and we spent the night by the tree or whatever your tradition is, and then Christmas Day, we had a really good morning, and then dinner was a little rough, but you know what the kid probably remembers? Christmas Eve and getting ready in the morning. Maybe now they know why mommy doesn't talk to XYZ or daddy doesn't like XYZ, whatever the case.
I like that idea of adjusting expectations, and I do think that's a good point because I should say I have said no to engagements, but we have done different engagements with those people, just maybe excluding certain people, which, I mean, it sucks, but again, it is what it is, and we're grown-ups, and if you wanna act that way, then you're gonna have to unfortunately deal with the consequences of your actions, and if you're not understanding that, then I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, I think that's a great point is that sometimes you can do simple, manageable traditions or different little things that are great, but then maybe you still do something if you're trying to make everybody happy. Just because I know a lot of us, I'm sure there's people out there that are still people pleasers or recovering people pleasers. So we understand trying to find a happy medium for sure.
Most definitely. It's also a great life lesson for your kiddo. My
Mhm.
little plug. I always like they are growing and they're seeing how you handle things, and sometimes learning that you have to let people go is a really great lesson, and sometimes learning that you might be around people that you don't get along with is a great life lesson. Like, I feel like a lot of us were taught that we have to be nice and we have to do what people say no matter what. I think that maybe should be something that our generation ends. I don't know.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great point is we can do both. It's like we're teaching both because I think a lot of people think walking away is weak, but I'm like sometimes we're teaching your kids sometimes you need to, but then sometimes there are people that we just don't like but we have to. deal with, you know? So yeah, I love that. I think that's an excellent point. And I will say too, just to kind of tag on, if the holidays, if you are dealing with like grief or toxic family and it is, let's say you're overwhelmed and overstimulated and you're dealing with a lot, don't forget to take some self-care for yourself and set some boundaries, just even if it's a little downtime, just because I know this time of year can be really hectic. Like I said, there's the holiday planning, then you're potentially thinking about end of year goals, which we will be discussing next episode because we're not discussing them, but anyway, we'll get into that. Then there's, like we said, all the life stuff and then things like that. And so don't forget, like, it can be a very draining time of year. So don't forget to just take time, even if it's 10 minutes, or also, like I said, setting the boundaries where you're like, hey, maybe we're not doing this year. You know, we're going to keep it simple, that type of thing. So I just, yeah, if you are going through all of this, don't forget to take some moments.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, especially like all the things that you mentioned. And for a lot of us who are working, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that in like the year end goals, but this for some people this is slow season, but I feel like a lot of people this is busy season because people are trying to meet those goals. And I know for me, I can let myself like get really overwhelmed and do all the things. I know one boundary that I set for me because this is always my busy season. I don't host during the holidays. I'm glad to come and bring stuff. My in-laws usually, like, cook together and stuff, and I hate to be the one to not do that, but I will bring whatever you want me to bring. However, I'm not spending 8 hours in the kitchen watching other people do other stuff when I have things that I need to get done. So, like, that goes along with the boundaries, and there are ways that you can adjust, and hopefully your family understands. I know it took a little bit for my family to get used to the idea that, like, it's not me not wanting to help, it's just me setting my boundaries. So, it can be hard, but it's worth it.
Especially because I think that's an excellent point is you're still partaking in a lot, but maybe you can't do it all. And I think that is a good point to remind yourself that don't let people make you feel guilty for not doing everything. Like you are redefined, like you can redefine enough for you. And so just kind of let go of that perfection. It can be hard, especially when there's people like, hey, you need to do this. And it's like, I get it. But at the same time, it's like Hop. She's still showing up. She's still part of the thing. She's still contributing. It just might not look exactly the way they want it to. And that's still okay. So I do think that's a great point that you can kind of figure out how to make it work for you while still honoring traditions and your family and things like that. But again, we're busy. There's a lot going on. And like Hav and I have talked about before, Hav is her busy work time of year. So just to think of like adding on also hosting maybe every weekend, that would be a lot. So I love that you put those boundaries up.
Yes, I'll come to everybody's event. We go to lots of events. I would not be having anybody home.
Well, and hosting's a lot. And honestly, and hot take, but I'm like, you host year round. So, having a little boundary for the holiday,
That's
I
true.
think is an
I
okay
do host year-round.
thing.
Didn't I think about thank you. I remember that. I did Friendsgiving last year and it was really fun, but I remember it being stressful. But yeah, you're right. I do think that's year-round.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, there's a lot. So
Sorry, y'all. I am an adult, but I get a little immature sometimes.
do you have any last minute thoughts before I wrap up?
I think just in general, like with everything else, this can be a difficult time. There's a lot of difficult times, but doing what's best for you, right? Like not going to a family event might not be best for you. I know I love to rest, but as Leah knows, like I do all the things to make everybody happy and to make sure that Azzy is getting all the family events and stuff. And so while I do set a lot of boundaries, there's some things that we choose our battles and we do it. So give yourself a lot of grace in what you decide to do. And I know this is so hard for me. So it's hard for me to even suggest it, but like give yourself time limits and let people know you will be leaving at a certain time, things like that. I always end up staying like way longer than I want. And then I'm so tired and so burnt out. And especially with the holiday madness with kids, it can be really hard to get them to settle. So maybe that's kind of the boundary that you set. You still go to all the family events, but you set a time that you're going to leave by, or whatever the case may be. Or if you're like me, I prioritize the beginning part where I'm going to be home doing my own thing until the party starts and then whatnot. But think about what works best for you and your family, adjust, and let people know what to expect from you.
And honestly, kids are a good excuse. I mean, the holidays can be really busy, especially if you have little ones that need naps and things like that, and people don't realize you start skipping those. I'm like, it starts getting rough. But I'm like, they are a good excuse where you're like, we really have to leave, otherwise we're not going to be able to make it tomorrow. That type of thing. So, yeah, it can be hard, but it can be really good for you and for your kids, just because the holidays are a very, very busy time of year.
And I will say the same thing
Yeah,
goes for work. Put
yeah.
boundaries at work. That's a really difficult thing to do, and we can talk about that more next time with goals and stuff, but I think that's something that, like, I struggle with, like, taking time off. My birthday is the first week of December, and I always feel like I can't take it off because we have, like, the holidays coming up and stuff, and it's crunch time, but, like, just it's not your fault that there's holidays, you know?
Enjoy yourself. Yeah.
Boundaries at work are good too.
Especially because I know you've heard it before, but it's like you are replaceable there, even though but you're not replaceable at home or on those things. Like you might not have a birthday next year, like as grim as that is. But I'm like, I think it's like as we get older, it's like we definitely should enjoy the moments that we can. So I think that's a great point. It's like work, yes, it's important, but you are important too. So I love that. And I do hope you take your birthday off.
We'll see.
Ah,
It's just so hard when you work from home because 'cause I'm, like, taking the time off, but I could just get the work done, especially when you're the only person who does said work,
and when you do know the holidays are coming up and you're going to get time off, it's like, oh, I could just push through right now.
right? But then I have to remind myself that me taking a day or 2 off and, like, delaying messages, other people do it and they don't care when I have stuff that needs to get done, so
Plus, I'm like, you're good at your job. It's like we always think we won't be able to catch up, but it's like you'd be there for an hour and you'd already be caught up. So
it's the fact that I don't want to
I know.
catch up. I don't wanna come to 60 emails of people not understanding that they could have solved it on their own.
But straight up. So, as we are about to leave today, this is just your reminder that this is your permission slip that burnout is normal, not just because of the holidays. It's just especially normal at the end of the holiday, at the end of the year, I feel like, because there's the holidays and all of that feeling of overwhelm and whatever, but it doesn't make you a bad mom. So it's okay to redefine the holidays on your terms, like we've said, and make it work for your family and your budget. Because we've talked about it a ton. It can be easy to get caught up. So just remember that joy can exist with imperfection and your self care and all the chaos. So think about what small change or boundary that you can set this season just to kind of help you avoid burnout and to provide some ease through this year. So like Hob said, maybe it's setting a leaving time, or maybe it's getting it done ahead of time. So definitely just consider that. Hav, do you have any? I know I asked if you had any, but do you have any final thoughts?
I think just with, like, as you're setting the boundaries, communicate with those that have expectations of you. I think, Aaliyah, you mentioned this, but using if it's hard for you to think of, like, how to communicate boundaries without sounding like you're being negative or whatever, using a phrase that's, similar, like, "This year, I'm keeping it simple to preserve our joy," or, "This year, we're gonna be leaving at 8 p.m. so that we can wake up for" just exactly, so we can wake up for Santa in the morning or whatever the case, and maybe sending those text messages or those having those conversations prior to the event so that whoever's hosting or whatever knows what to expect. And then you know that you did what you needed to do to communicate, and if they're upset about it, that's really on.
I agree. Yeah. And I do love that. And I think even a good time to communicate it, maybe if you already know, maybe when you're RSVPing, not
Mhm.
everyone does it, but maybe you're like, hey, by the way, we're going to have to leave at 8 because we have, a previous
Yeah.
obligation. Like you don't have to explain anything. And if they are good friends, it's like Hoff said, they should be able to understand those boundaries and be okay. Like they should be grateful that you are making time in your calendar anyway. So, with that, stay tuned. The next episode is actually going to be our season finale. It's going to be covering the New Year guilt. So, like we talked about, it's easy to feel guilty about unmet goals and needing to set New Year's resolutions and this pressure to fix yourself come to New Year. So, that's not always the case. So, we will see you for a chat next week on just kind of making this time of year a little less curated and more authentic for us moms. So we will see you then. Bye.
Bye.